The Great Hall of the Galactic Justice Center was silent except for the soft hum of translation devices. Representatives from dozens of species sat in curved rows, their eyes focused on the witness stand. Commander Zektar of the Hegemony Fleet stood there, his gray skin marked with old battle scars. His forearms hung at his sides as he looked out at the crowd. The chief judge, a tall being from the Centauri system, spoke first. Commander Zektar, you have agreed to testify about the war with the humans. Please tell us how it began. Zektar's voice was deep and rough. It started 3 years ago when we first found them. The humans lived on a small blue planet they called Earth. We thought they would be easy to defeat. We were very wrong. He paused and looked down at his hands. I was leading the 3rd battle group when we got orders to move into their space. The hegemony had been expanding for centuries. We had defeated the Zephyrians, the Crystal Mines, and the Void Swimmers. Every species we met either joined us or was destroyed. Humans seemed no different. The courtroom was completely quiet. Many beings had heard stories about the human war, but few knew the real details. We entered their system near a gas giant they called Jupiter. Our scouts reported seeing human ships, but they looked primitive. Small metal vessels with basic weapons. My officers laughed when they saw the first scans. Zektar's voice grew quieter. I remember my second-in-command, Subleader Vorth, saying that their ships looked like toys. A holographic display showed the battle formation. The Hegemony fleet was massive, over 200 ships arranged in perfect attack formation. The human fleet was much smaller, maybe 30 vessels scattered in what looked like random positions. I opened a communication channel to their leader, a human male named Captain Jake Morrison. He was young by our standards, with brown hair and green eyes. He looked calm when he appeared on my screen. Too calm. Zektar walked closer to the holographic display. I gave him the standard surrender demand. Join the hegemony or be destroyed. Captain Morrison listened without speaking. When I finished, he smiled. That smile should have warned me. The alien commander touched a control and the display showed the human captain's face. Morrison looked ordinary by human standards, but there was something in his eyes that made Zektar uncomfortable even now. Morrison spoke in a clear voice. He said, Commander, I appreciate the offer, but we'll have to decline. Earth doesn't surrender. Then he cut the communication. A ripple of whispers went through the courtroom. Most species would at least try to negotiate when facing such odds. I ordered the attack immediately. Our doctrine was simple. Destroy their command ship first, then demand surrender from the survivors. It had worked against every other species. Zektar's voice became strained. But humans are not like other species. The holographic display shifted to show the battle. Hegemony ships moved in perfect formation, their plasma cannons charging for the first strike. The human ships seemed to scatter like frightened animals. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about warfare. Instead of running away, the human ships split into small groups. They attacked our flanks while we were focused on their main force. They used their smaller size and speed to get close to our ships. Zektar gestured at the display. Captain Morrison's ship, the Iron Falcon, led a direct attack on my command vessel. He came straight at us while our main guns were aimed at his fleet. By the time we turned to face him, 3 human fighters had already damaged our shield generators. The alien commander's voice grew darker. That was when I first saw what humans call courage. One of their pilots, Lieutenant Kevin Walsh, was in a damaged fighter. His ship was on fire and losing atmosphere. Any rational being would have retreated to safety. The display showed a small human fighter trailing smoke and sparks. It was clearly dying, but instead of turning away, it accelerated toward a hegemony cruiser. Walsh's fighter was too damaged to escape, so he did something no other species had ever done in our experience. He aimed his ship at our cruiser's main reactor and increased speed. His fighter crashed into our ship and both vessels exploded. The courtroom was completely silent. Many beings had never heard of such tactics. In that moment, I realized we were not fighting a normal species. Walsh chose to die to destroy one of our ships. He made that choice in seconds without hesitation. My tactical computers could not predict such behavior. Zektar moved away from the display. The battle continued for 6 hours. We had superior numbers and better weapons, but the humans fought in ways we had never seen. They took terrible losses but never retreated. Every ship that was destroyed took at least one of ours with it. The alien commander looked directly at the judges. By the end of the first battle, we had won technically. The human fleet was destroyed, but we lost 43 ships and over 2,000 crew members. Against 30 human vessels, A judge from the Aquatic Federation leaned forward. "Commander, what was your assessment of human military capability after this encounter?" Zektar was quiet for a long moment. "I sent a report to Hegemony Command recommending immediate peace negotiations. I suggested that humans were too dangerous to fight. The cost of victory would be too high." He paused again. "My superiors ignored the report. They said I was being weak. They sent reinforcements and ordered us to continue the advance toward Earth. They believed that humans were just lucky in the first battle." The alien commander's voice became very quiet. "I knew they were wrong. During the battle, I had monitored human communications. I heard Captain Morrison talking to his crew as his ship was dying. He was calm, giving orders, encouraging his people. Even when defeat was certain, he was planning the next attack." Zektar looked up at the ceiling of the Great Hall. "That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Morrison's last transmission. He said, 'Tell Earth we held the line. Tell them we made it count.' Then his ship exploded. The alien commander turned back to face the court. I realized that we were not just fighting human ships or human weapons. We were fighting the human spirit. And that spirit was something we had never encountered before." He straightened his shoulders. "What I have told you was just the beginning. The real war had not even started yet. If you think the first battle was disturbing, you are not prepared for what came next." The chief judge nodded. "Continue your testimony, Commander. Tell us about the campaign that followed." Zektar looked out at the assembled representatives, his expression grim. "Very well. But remember that you asked to hear this. Some knowledge cannot be forgotten once it is learned." Commander Zektar stood silent for a moment before continuing his testimony. The courtroom remained perfectly quiet, waiting for his next words. 2 weeks after the first battle, we received new orders. The Hegemony wanted us to attack Titan Station, a human mining facility near their outer planets. Intelligence reports said it was lightly defended. We thought it would be an easy victory to boost morale after our losses. Zektar activated the holographic display again. It showed a large space station orbiting a brown and orange moon. The station looked industrial, with many metal arms extending from a central hub. Admiral Lisa Brooks commanded the human defense. She had only 12 ships protecting the station, against our force of 80 vessels. By all military logic, the battle should have lasted less than an hour. The alien commander moved closer to the display. We approached in standard formation. I tried to contact Admiral Brooks to offer surrender terms. When her face appeared on my screen, I was surprised. She looked tired, like she had not slept in days, but her eyes were sharp and focused. The display showed a middle-aged human woman with gray hair and lines around her eyes. She wore a military uniform with many medals. Admiral Brooks listened to my surrender demand. Then she said something that confused me at the time. She said, "Commander, you don't understand what you're asking. Humans don't surrender when civilians are at stake. We can't, it's not in our nature." Zektar gestured to the holographic station. There were over 3,000 civilian workers on Titan Station. Mining families, children, elderly people. In every other species we had encountered, the presence of civilians made surrender more likely. Rational beings protect their non-combatants by avoiding hopeless fights. The alien commander's voice grew heavy. Admiral Brooks saw things differently. She told me, "Every minute we delay you here is another minute for our people to evacuate. Every ship you have to destroy is one less ship attacking other human colonies. We're going to make this cost you everything we can." The holographic display began showing the battle formation. Human ships spread out in a defensive sphere around the station. The battle began at 800 station time. Our first wave concentrated fire on the human ships closest to us. We destroyed 2 vessels in the opening attack. I expected the others to retreat or ask for terms. Zektar paused and looked down. Instead, something happened that our military computers had never predicted. The remaining human ships attacked more aggressively. They fought harder after seeing their comrades die, not less hard. The display showed small human fighters launching from the station. They were tiny compared to the Hegemony warships, like insects attacking giants. Lieutenant Sam Carter was leading the fighter squadron. His ship was called Dancing Bear. Humans give names to their vessels like they are living things. Carter's fighter was damaged in the first exchange, losing its main weapons and life support. The alien commander's voice became strained. Any rational pilot would have retreated to the station for repairs. Carter's fighter could not survive much longer in space, but he did not retreat. The holographic display zoomed in on a single small fighter. Smoke was pouring from its engines, and parts of its hull were glowing red from heat damage. I was monitoring human communications. I heard Carter talking to his squadron leader. He said, "My bird's done for, but she's still got engines. I'm going to make it count." Zektar turned away from the display. Carter aimed his dying fighter at our command cruiser, the Eternal Victory. He accelerated to maximum speed, using his ship like a weapon. Our point defense systems tried to stop him, but his fighter was too fast and too small. The courtroom was completely silent. Many beings had never heard tactics described in such detail. The fighter crashed into our bridge section. The explosion killed our fleet coordinator and damaged our communication systems. One pilot and a broken ship had crippled our ability to coordinate the entire battle. The alien commander looked directly at the judges. But that was not the most disturbing part. As Carter's fighter was crashing, I heard his final transmission. He was laughing. A human being was about to die in an explosion, and he was laughing with joy. A judge from the Silicon Collective asked, "Commander, did you understand why the human pilot was reacting this way?" Zektar was quiet for several seconds. Later, I learned about human psychology and warfare. When humans fight to protect others, they enter a mental state that other species find incomprehensible. They become more dangerous when they are losing, not less dangerous. The holographic display showed the rest of the battle. Human ships continued attacking even when heavily damaged. Several more vessels followed Carter's example, using themselves as weapons when their guns were destroyed. The battle lasted 4 hours. We destroyed every human ship and captured the station. But the cost was enormous. We lost 27 vessels and nearly 4,000 crew members. Against 12 human ships. Zektar moved back to the center of the witness area. Admiral Brooks died when her flagship exploded, but not before she completed the evacuation. All 3,000 civilians escaped to other human colonies. She sacrificed her entire fleet to save people who could not fight. The alien commander's voice became very quiet. After the battle, I walked through the captured station. The human defenders had fought room by room, corridor by corridor. Even civilian workers had tried to stop us with mining tools and emergency equipment. He gestured to the display, which now showed the interior of the station. Burn marks and battle damage covered every surface. In the station's command center, I found Admiral Brooks's final log entry. She had recorded it as her ship was dying. She said, "To whoever finds this, we held for 4 hours and 17 minutes. Every civilian got out. The cost was acceptable." Zektar looked up at the ceiling. "Acceptable." She called the destruction of her entire fleet and the deaths of all her people acceptable. "Because the civilians lived." A ripple of disturbed whispers went through the courtroom. The concept was difficult for many species to understand. I sent another report to Hegemony Command, recommending that we avoid battles where human civilians were present. I explained that humans would fight with impossible determination when protecting non-combatants. The alien commander's expression grew darker. Again, my superiors ignored the warning. They said that human emotional responses were a weakness we could exploit. They ordered us to attack civilian targets to force human surrender. Zektar turned to face the court directly. That decision led to the worst phase of the war. When the hegemony began targeting human civilians, we discovered that we had not yet seen the true limits of human warfare. He paused and looked at each judge in turn. What happened at Titan Station was disturbing, but it was still recognizable as military action. What came next was something entirely different. Something that changed how we think about warfare forever. The chief judge leaned forward. "Continue, Commander. Tell us about this next phase." Zektar nodded slowly. "Very well. But I warn you again, some knowledge brings nightmares. The humans taught us that there are worse things than losing a battle. Sometimes winning can destroy you just as completely." Commander Zektar stood quietly for a long moment, his forearms trembling slightly. The assembled representatives waited, sensing that something darker was coming. After Titan Station, Hegemony Command made a decision that haunts me to this day. They ordered us to begin attacking human civilian targets. The strategy was simple: cause enough pain to human non-combatants and their military would surrender to save them. The alien commander activated the holographic display. It showed star charts marking human colonies throughout their local space. We began with small settlements. Mining colonies, research stations, farming worlds. We expected the attacks to break human morale quickly. Instead, we created something much worse. We gave birth to human asymmetric warfare. Zektar gestured to a highlighted system on the display. Our first target was Colony 7, a farming world with 50,000 civilians. We surrounded the planet and demanded surrender. The colony administrator, a human female named Nancy White, agreed to negotiate. The display showed a pleasant-looking middle-aged woman speaking on a communication screen. She appeared calm and reasonable. Nancy White asked for 3 days to organize the surrender. She said the colonists needed time to prepare for evacuation. This seemed logical, so I agreed. It was the worst mistake of my military career. The alien commander's voice became strained. During those 3 days, every human civilian on the planet disappeared. When we landed our occupation forces, we found empty cities, abandoned farms, and no people. 50,000 humans had vanished without a trace. A judge from the Crystalline Assembly asked, "Commander, where did they go?" Zektar turned toward the judge. We did not find out for 6 months. Nancy White had used the time to organize a complete evacuation through underground tunnels and hidden spacecraft. But more importantly, she had contacted someone called Colonel Amy Rodriguez. The holographic display changed to show a human woman in military uniform. Rodriguez looked young but had hard eyes and a determined expression. Colonel Rodriguez commanded Human Special Operations Forces. After our attack on Colony 7, she began a campaign that violated every rule of civilized warfare we knew. But according to human military law, everything she did was completely legal. Zektar moved closer to the display. Rodriguez's first action was to attack our supply lines. But she did not attack our military convoys. Instead, she targeted the civilian contractors who provided food, fuel, and equipment to our forces. The alien commander's voice grew darker. Under galactic law, civilian contractors are protected non-combatants. Rodriguez found a loophole. She classified them as military targets because they supported combat operations. Technically, she was correct. The display showed cargo ships exploding in space. Each explosion represented hundreds of civilian workers killed. Within 2 weeks, Rodriguez had destroyed 60% of our supply network. Our ships began running short of food and fuel, but that was only the beginning of her campaign. Zektar turned away from the display. Rodriguez studied hegemony psychology. She learned that we value order, predictability, and clear rules of engagement. So she created chaos. The alien commander gestured, and the display showed a tactical map with red marks scattered across it. Her forces would attack our patrols, then disappear. They would sabotage our equipment, then vanish into civilian populations. They would send false surrender offers, then ambush our negotiation teams. Every day brought new attacks from unexpected directions. A representative from the hive mind species clicked his mandibles nervously. "Commander, how did this affect your forces?" Zektar looked directly at him. We began to break down psychologically. My soldiers could not sleep because they expected attacks at any moment. Our officers stopped trusting any human communications. Some crews refused to leave their ships because they feared ambushes. The holographic display showed medical reports with increasing numbers of psychological casualties. Rodriguez also weaponized human prisoners of war. When we captured her soldiers, they would submit to interrogation willingly. They would provide information about human positions, plans, and resources. We thought we were gaining valuable intelligence. The alien commander's voice became very quiet. Every piece of information was false. The humans had created an elaborate deception network. Their prisoners were trained to lie convincingly under questioning. They fed us fake intelligence that led our forces into prepared ambushes. Zektar activated a new display showing prisoner interrogation records. Major Ben Collins was captured during a raid on our communication station. He spent 3 days in our detention facility, answering questions about human military operations. The display showed a human male with brown hair and a beard. He looked tired but cooperative during the interrogation recordings. Collins told us about a secret human base on the moon of Kepler 4. He provided detailed maps, security codes, and troop numbers. The information seemed accurate because Collins appeared broken by interrogation. The alien commander paused. We sent 2 battle groups to attack the base Collins described. When our ships arrived, they found an abandoned mining facility with no military value. But hidden nearby were 50 human fighters that destroyed both battle groups in a surprise attack. The courtroom erupted in surprised whispers. Several judges looked shocked by the revelation. Collins had spent 3 days convincing us he was a broken prisoner, while actually planning our destruction. When we released him in a prisoner exchange, he smiled and thanked us for listening to his stories. Zektar moved to a different part of the witness area. But the most disturbing part of Rodriguez's campaign was how she used human psychology against us. She recruited a specialist called Dr. Helen Parker. The display showed a human woman with short gray hair and kind eyes. She looked like a harmless academic. Dr. Parker was a military psychologist. She studied how different species react to stress and fear. Then she designed psychological warfare specifically targeting hegemony mental weaknesses. The alien commander's voice became strained. Dr. Parker discovered that we fear unpredictability more than direct threats. So Rodriguez's forces began using random attack patterns that followed no logical strategy. The holographic display showed attack charts that made no tactical sense. Raids hit targets of varying importance at seemingly random times. Our analysts could not predict where the next attack would come. Our troops lived in constant anxiety, never knowing when or where humans would strike next. Some of my officers requested transfer to other combat zones because they could not handle the stress. Zektar looked up at the ceiling. Dr. Parker also learned that we have strong family bonds. So Rodriguez began broadcasting messages to our homeworlds. The messages contained lists of our casualties along with personal details about the dead soldiers. The alien commander's voice cracked slightly. The broadcasts were not propaganda. They were accurate reports about our people who had died fighting humans. But hearing those details read by human voices, day after day, broke the morale of our families back home. A judge from the Peaceful Confederation asked, "Commander, were these tactics violations of galactic warfare conventions?" Zektar was quiet for several seconds. That was the most disturbing aspect. We checked every action Rodriguez took against galactic law. None of her tactics were illegal. Humans had found ways to wage psychological warfare that stayed within legal boundaries. The alien commander turned back to the display. After 6 months of fighting Rodriguez's forces, I had lost 40% of my fleet without winning a single significant battle. My remaining crews were psychologically damaged. Many needed medical treatment for combat stress. He paused and looked directly at the judges. I requested permission to negotiate with Rodriguez directly. I wanted to understand what she hoped to achieve with her campaign. The display showed a communication screen with Rodriguez's face. She looked tired but still determined. Rodriguez agreed to a virtual meeting. When she appeared on my screen, she spoke very calmly. She said, "Commander, we're not trying to defeat your fleet. We're trying to make you defeat yourselves." Zektar's voice became very quiet. I asked her to explain. Rodriguez smiled and said, "Every day you fight us, your people back home hear about more casualties. Every week this war continues, your economy spends more resources. Every month you stay in human space, your crews become more damaged. Eventually the cost will be too high and you'll leave on your own." The alien commander looked around the courtroom. I realized that Rodriguez was not fighting a military campaign. She was fighting an economic and psychological war designed to make victory too expensive for us to afford. He straightened his shoulders. But Rodriguez's campaign was only the beginning. What happened next at New Geneva Colony showed us the true depths of human determination. If you think psychological warfare was disturbing, you are not prepared for what humans will do when they have no other options. Commander Zektar stood motionless for nearly a minute before continuing his testimony. Several judges noticed his hands shaking as he approached the holographic display. New Geneva Colony was our final target before attacking Earth itself. The settlement housed 200,000 human civilians on a planet with rich mineral deposits. Hegemony Command believed that capturing it would force human surrender. The display showed a beautiful world with blue oceans, green continents, and white clouds. Cities dotted the surface, connected by roads and transportation networks. We surrounded New Geneva with our entire remaining fleet, 140 ships. The human defenders had only 20 vessels and the planetary defense systems. By all military calculations, the siege should have lasted days, not months. Zektar activated a tactical display showing the hegemony fleet in orbit around the planet. General Marcus Kane commanded the human defense. He was an older man with gray hair and scars from previous battles. When I offered surrender terms, his response was unlike anything I had heard before. The display showed a human male in his 60s wearing a simple military uniform. His eyes were calm, but determined. General Kane looked directly at me through the communication screen and said, "Commander, you're asking us to surrender our home. That's not something humans can do. We'd rather die fighting than live as prisoners in our own cities." The alien commander gestured to the planetary display. I explained that resistance was hopeless. Our fleet could destroy the planet if necessary. Kane listened patiently, then said something that still gives me nightmares. He said, "Every meter you take from us, you'll pay for with blood and nightmares." Zektar moved away from the display, his voice becoming strained. The siege began on a Tuesday morning local time. We expected the planetary defenses to fall within hours. Instead, we encountered the most sophisticated defensive network any of us had ever seen. The holographic display showed orbital platforms, ground-based missiles and fighter squadrons attacking the hegemony fleet. The humans had spent years preparing for this siege. Every civilian on the planet had been trained in basic military skills. Every building had been modified for defense. Every street had been prepared for warfare. The alien commander paused, looking down at his hands. But the most disturbing discovery was that human children were participating in the defense, not as soldiers but as support personnel and intelligence gatherers. A judge from the Pacifist Alliance spoke up. "Commander, are you saying that humans used their young in military operations?" Zektar nodded slowly. 16-year-old Katie Williams was typical. She worked as a communications operator, relaying messages between defense units. But she also volunteered for reconnaissance missions that adult soldiers considered too dangerous. The display showed a young human female with blonde hair and bright eyes. She looked innocent, nothing like a military threat. Katie Williams walked into one of our forward command posts carrying a white flag. She claimed to have a surrender message from General Kane. My officers allowed her to approach because she was obviously a child. The alien commander's voice became very quiet. Williams carried a small device that our scanners did not detect. It was hidden inside a fake medical implant. When she reached our command table, she activated the device. The courtroom was completely silent. Many representatives looked uncomfortable with the direction of the testimony. The explosion destroyed our forward command post and killed 12 officers, including our tactical coordinator. Williams died in the blast, but her sacrifice crippled our ability to coordinate ground operations for 3 days. Zektar turned back to the display. That incident taught us that humans would use any advantage available, including their young. But it also showed us something more disturbing. Human children volunteered for these missions willingly. The alien commander activated a recording of intercepted human communications. We monitored the conversation between Williams and General Kane before her mission. She requested permission to carry the explosive device. Kane tried to refuse, saying she was too young. Williams convinced him by arguing that children could get closer to our forces than adult soldiers. A representative from the collective consciousness asked, "How did this affect your troops' morale?" Zektar was quiet for several seconds. My soldiers began to fear human civilians more than human soldiers. They knew that any person approaching our positions might be carrying weapons or explosives. Elderly humans, children, even injured people became potential threats. The holographic display changed to show the siege timeline. The battle continued for 8 months. Every week brought new examples of human determination that our military computers could not predict or counter. The alien commander gestured to different parts of the display. Humans used their dead as psychological weapons. They would leave bodies in positions where our patrols would find them, along with personal messages for the soldiers' families. The messages were not threats. They were just final words from dying people to their loved ones. Zektar's voice cracked slightly. Reading those messages destroyed the morale of our troops. My soldiers began to see humans as people with families and dreams, not just enemy targets. Some of my officers requested transfer because they could not continue fighting. Beings who seemed so much like ourselves. The display showed medical reports documenting psychological casualties among hegemony forces. Dr. Sarah Kim was the colony's chief medical officer. When we captured the main hospital, we expected to find military supplies and weapons. Instead, we found her treating wounded soldiers from both sides equally. The holographic display showed a human woman in medical clothing working on injured patients. Some were human, others were hegemony personnel. Dr. Kim had been secretly treating our wounded soldiers whenever they were brought to the hospital. She explained that her medical oath required her to help anyone who needed care, regardless of which side they fought for. The alien commander looked directly at the judges. This created an impossible situation for my forces. How do you fight an enemy who treats your wounded with the same care they give their own people? How do you hate beings who show mercy even during the worst battles? Zektar moved to the center of the witness area. The psychological pressure on my troops became unbearable. They were fighting humans who acted with honor, courage, and compassion even while defending their homes. Many of my soldiers began to question whether we were the right side in this war. The display showed the final assault on New Geneva's capital city. After 8 months, we finally broke through the planetary defenses. General Kane's forces retreated to the city center for their final stand. The alien commander's voice became very quiet. The urban warfare that followed was the worst thing I have ever experienced. Humans fought room by room, building by building, never yielding ground without extracting a terrible cost. The holographic display showed the ruined streets of New Geneva's capital. Every building was damaged by fighting. Civilian humans continued to support the defense even when the battle was clearly lost. They provided food, medical care, and ammunition to the soldiers. They carried messages between units and helped evacuate wounded fighters. Zektar paused and looked up at the ceiling. On the final day, General Kane sent his last transmission. Our forces had surrounded his headquarters. His defenses were destroyed. His remaining soldiers were out of ammunition. The display showed Kane's final message. He looked tired but unbroken. Kane spoke directly to his people. He said, "We've held for 8 months and 11 days. We've made them pay for every street, every building, every room. Our families have escaped to other worlds. We've done our duty. Earth will remember what we sacrificed here." The alien commander's voice broke completely. Then Kane activated a final explosive device that destroyed his headquarters and killed the last 200 human defenders. They chose death rather than surrender. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Many representatives looked shaken by the testimony. We had won the battle for New Geneva Colony, but the victory felt like defeat. My remaining troops were psychologically broken. The planet's cities were ruins. The human population was gone. We had conquered an empty world at the cost of thousands of our own people. Zektar straightened his shoulders and looked directly at the judges. That night, I sat in the ruins of General Kane's headquarters and tried to understand what we had accomplished. We had defeated the humans militarily, but they had defeated us in every other way. He paused and gestured to the destroyed city on the display. The humans had shown us that victory and defeat are not always clear concepts. Sometimes the losing side wins by forcing the winner to become something terrible. The alien commander's voice became very quiet. But New Geneva was not the end of our war with humanity. What happened next taught us that we had only fought one small part of the human species. The real revelation was still coming. Commander Zektar stood silently for a long time, staring at the holographic display showing the ruins of New Geneva Colony. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. After New Geneva fell, we prepared for the final assault on Earth itself. Hegemony Command expected the attack to be simple. We had defeated every human fleet, conquered their colonies, and broken their military forces. Earth should have surrendered immediately. The alien commander activated a new display showing the blue and green planet that had started the entire war. But when we entered Earth's solar system, we found something that changed everything we thought we knew about humanity. The display showed massive defensive installations throughout the solar system. Space stations, weapon platforms, and mining facilities formed a network of fortifications. Earth was not defenseless. The planet was protected by the largest military construction project in known galactic history. While we had been fighting their outer colonies, humans had been building defenses that made New Geneva look like a training exercise. Zektar gestured to the tactical display. Admiral Robert Taylor commanded Earth's defenses. When I opened communications to offer surrender terms, his response was unlike anything we had heard from other human leaders. The display showed an older human male with white hair and a calm expression. His uniform was different from the other human officers Zektar had described. Admiral Taylor listened to my surrender demand, then smiled. He said, "Commander Zektar, I've been reading reports about your campaign. You've fought bravely against impossible odds, but you've made one critical error in your assessment of humanity." The alien commander moved closer to the display. I asked Taylor to explain. He activated a holographic star chart that showed human space, but not the space we had been fighting in. The courtroom stirred as representatives realized the implications. Taylor's chart showed dozens of human colonies that we had never detected. Hidden settlements, secret mining operations, and military bases spread throughout local space. We had been fighting only one small branch of the human species. Zektar's voice became strained. Taylor explained that humans had been expanding into space for decades before we encountered them. The colonies we had attacked were just the outer frontier settlements. The real human civilization was much larger and more advanced than we had realized. The holographic display expanded to show the true scope of human space. The territory was enormous, with Earth at the center of a vast network of hidden worlds. Admiral Taylor made an offer that terrified me more than any threat could have. He said, "Commander, we're prepared to negotiate a peace treaty. We'll establish borders and trade agreements. But if you attack Earth, every human colony will know that diplomatic solutions don't work with your species." The alien commander paused and looked directly at the judges. I asked what that meant. Taylor's expression became very serious. He said, "If Earth falls, 47 hidden human worlds will begin total warfare against the hegemony. They'll use every tactic you've seen in our frontier colonies, but with the resources and knowledge of our entire civilization." A ripple of shocked whispers went through the courtroom. The scope of the threat was becoming clear. Taylor activated another display showing industrial capacity reports. The hidden human colonies had been producing military equipment, training soldiers, and developing new weapons throughout our entire campaign. Zektar gestured to the production figures. While we had been fighting 12 human ships at Titan Station, human factories were building hundreds of new vessels. While we had been besieging New Geneva, human research stations were developing weapons designed specifically to counter hegemony technology. The alien commander's voice became very quiet. I realized that our entire war had been a testing ground for human military innovation. They had been studying our tactics, learning our weaknesses, and preparing countermeasures. The display showed intercepted human communications from the hidden colonies. I read messages between human commanders discussing our campaign. They were not panicking about our victories. They were taking notes. A judge from the Rational Collective asked, "Commander, what was your assessment of human capabilities at this point?" Zektar was silent for nearly a minute. I calculated the probable outcome of attacking Earth. Based on our experience fighting frontier humans, a war against their entire civilization would cost the hegemony everything. The alien commander activated a projection showing casualty estimates. Our military computers predicted that defeating all human colonies would require our entire fleet and result in 90% casualties. Even if we won, the hegemony would be too damaged to defend against other galactic threats. Zektar moved away from the display. I contacted Hegemony Command and recommended immediate peace negotiations. I explained that humans were not the primitive species we had initially believed. They were a spacefaring civilization, with advanced technology and military capabilities. The holographic display showed the communication logs between Zektar and his superiors. Hegemony Command finally listened to my warnings. They authorized me to negotiate with Admiral Taylor. The peace talks lasted 3 days and resulted in the Treaty of Solar Peace. The alien commander gestured to a document display. The treaty established borders between human and hegemony space. It included trade agreements, prisoner exchange protocols, and mutual defense provisions against external threats. Zektar looked up at the ceiling. But the most important part of the treaty was what humans called the non-interference clause. Both species agreed to avoid contact with the other unless specifically invited. A representative from the diplomatic corps asked, "Why was this clause important?" Zektar turned toward the questioner. "Because Admiral Taylor explained something that still frightens me." He said, "Commander, your species and ours think about warfare in fundamentally different ways. You fight to conquer and expand. We fight to survive and protect. When our ways of thinking clash, the results are terrible for everyone involved." The alien commander's voice became strained. Taylor was correct. Our war with humanity had cost the hegemony more ships, soldiers, and resources than our previous 3 major galactic conflicts combined. And we had only fought a small portion of their species. The holographic display showed the final casualty reports. We lost 68% of our fleet and over 50,000 personnel. The economic cost required 20 years to recover from. Many of our military officers needed psychological treatment that lasted for years. Zektar moved to the center of the witness area. But the most disturbing aspect was the effect on our entire military doctrine. We were forced to classify human tactical methods and psychological warfare techniques as too dangerous for general use. The alien commander looked directly at the assembled representatives. Human warfare methods violated no galactic laws, but they were so psychologically devastating that we banned our own forces from studying them in detail. A judge from the ethics committee leaned forward. "Commander, what is your current assessment of the human threat?" Zektar was quiet for several seconds. "According to our latest intelligence reports, human colonies now number in the hundreds. Their technology has advanced significantly since our war. They have developed faster-than-light communication networks and weapon systems that we do not fully understand." The alien commander gestured to the display, which showed current human territory estimates. But more importantly, humans have been sharing their military knowledge with other species. The tactics they used against us are now being taught to anyone who requests training in asymmetric warfare. Zektar's voice became very quiet. 3 other species have successfully defended against hegemony expansion using modified human tactics. The psychological warfare methods humans developed are spreading throughout the galaxy. The alien commander straightened his shoulders and looked at each judge in turn. "I have come before this tribunal to provide testimony about humanity's capabilities, not to accuse them of war crimes. Everything they did during our conflict was legal under galactic law." He paused and gestured to the entire courtroom. "But I want you to understand what we learned from fighting humans. They are not like other species. They do not think about survival, honor, or victory in ways that our military computers can predict or counter." Zektar's voice became very serious. "If any of your species encounter humans in the future, remember this. They are not primitive, they are not weak, and they are not alone. What we fought was just the beginning of human expansion into galactic space." The alien commander looked directly at the chief judge. "My final warning is simple. Humans do not surrender when they believe they are protecting something important. They become more dangerous when they are losing, not less dangerous. And they learn from every battle, every defeat, every victory." He gestured one last time to the holographic display. "We defeated a small portion of humanity at enormous cost, but they are still out there, building ships, training soldiers, and preparing for whatever comes next. They remember what we taught them about galactic warfare." Zektar stepped back from the witness stand. "That concludes my testimony about the human war. I have told you everything I experienced,